Hi guys, welcome to the world is your bowl of noodles, slurp noodles, and chat. I am the host Jordan Ibakwe, and today we have a very special guest. Please give it up for Aiwanose Odafen, who is an author and the writer of Tomorrow I Became a Woman and We Were Girls Once. And it's just amazing that she's here. Thank you so much, Ma, for being in this space. It's just an honor having you. And please go check her out. Her books are phenomenal. Please go check the books as well. And just let's get into the episode and just as I always say, please go support the podcast, support this mission. I really do want more people to see these amazing voices and authors like Aiwanose say. And just thank you so much for being here. And let's get into the episode. All right, Ma, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and just what you do?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Aiwanose Odafen. I'm a writer. I'm the author of two books. My first book, Tomorrow I Become a Woman, came out in 2022. It was published by Simon and Schuster UK. It's been a bestseller for 3 straight years in Nigeria. And then my second book, We Were Girls Once, was published in 2024. So last year, April last year, it was also on the bestsellers list for in Nigeria for the year. Overall, I'm a writer who loves to write about women's experiences, who loves to put a mirror up to society, question how we view things and how we do things. When I'm not a writer, I'm actually a finance person. So I work in finance because I've always loved numbers as well. So never try to limit yourself.
Beautiful. I love that you went for that space in writing because there's so many beautiful writers who are Nigerian authors as well,
Yeah.
including you with Chimamanda Ngozi and also Chinua Achebe, and also there's a lot of more people that I can name. But honestly, I feel like Nigerian writers. Not, I'm not excluding African writers, but just Nigerian because that's my home. So I have to. I'm a little bit biased about it, but like it's just I love the writing and just the culture. But I do want to go into the first question, and I want to talk more about your book, Tomorrow I Become a Woman. And also the other book as well, We Were Once Girls or Girls Once. I'm so sorry for the stumble.
No worries.
And
That
I
was actually the funniest thing. That was actually the original title. Then my agent was like, no, let's make it girls once, not once girls. And
well, hey, look how the table is a wonderful book, and I've heard great things about it. But I do want to know, you tackle the complexities of gender and identity. What motivated you to write about these subjects, and how do you hope readers will engage with these themes?
um, I think it's always been something it's been something I've always been passionate about. So I'll give you some context here. I grew up in Nigeria. I'm the second of five girls and a boy. My brother didn't come into the world until way later. So I grew up second of five girls. I was subject to standard misogyny, the kind of comments people make when they hear the second of five girls, the kind of expectations people have, and I've always pushed back against it. It just felt wrong even before I knew what the word feminism was. I felt this was like it didn't make sense to me. And I remember reading Chemecheta's The Joys of Motherhood. I don't think it's a compulsory read here in the US, so you might never have heard of it. But it's a really powerful book by the great writer Buche Mecheta, and we had to read it then in secondary school. That's what you guys call high school. And I remember reading it and I got to the end and I was like, oh my God, I do not want to live this kind of life, that like sticking to expectations, continuously bending over backwards, for society. And it was just something that stuck in my mind. I was stuck in my mind that this wasn't going to happen to me. But then I never thought I was going to be a writer. Actually, I loved reading. I've always loved reading because I was brought up to read. But I never thought I was going to be a writer. But I think it was about 10 years ago. I was doing my master's degree. You're probably like, oh my gosh, I was doing a master's degree 10 years ago. But I finished school really young. So I was doing my master's 10 years ago and I made a friend who was going through a very difficult situation. And I remember trying to get her out of that situation. But then everyone, like society, was like, preaching at me. I was literally the bad guy for trying to help someone. And I remember telling a friend with so much anger and frustration, I told the friend, I was like, I'm going to write about it. And that was actually how it started. And once I started writing, I realized just how much it was such an outlet for me to just express my frustration about, so many things that were happening, not just not just women's issues, but just issues in general in society, and just ask questions that I felt were nagging at the back of my head, like, why is this like this? Or just depicting the experiences of contemporary African women, and also just discuss. I also love politics, so it was a great avenue for me to discuss our politics. I think African politics is very different from American politics, although American politics tends to consume us all because of social media. But so for me, it was really very much an outlet. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And just like you using your words as power and to amplify your message and your frustration on the situation. Because I know just in Nigeria, of course, even though we're in modern times, well, some parts of it still stuck in the deep cultural roots of just like, of course, child marriages and just marrying your daughters off to go like it's just all of that. And so I love that you take that and you say, no, this is not how it's supposed to be for girls because girls can do so much more. We have the capabilities, we have the same minds. It's
Mm-hmm.
nothing, there's no different. God made us the same way. So it's just going for that and just amplifying the truth. Like, this is what we women need to start doing and teaching our daughters that they can as well further and go on to be great people.
Yeah.
And I do want to understand your books explore the transformation from girlhood to womanhood in a society that often divides women's roles rigidly. So, how do you navigate the tension between societal expectations and individual identity in your writing?
Um, I think for me, my characters are very different. I try to write every character as their own person. Actually, a lot of my characters are inspired by real people I know. So I think that helps to keep the demarcation clear. But I also think in general, we've all been affected by societal expectations one way or the other. And it's never the same for everybody. Everyone is different, everybody's background is different. Also, the way you grow up also determines a lot of what you face as well, and kind of questions you're asking and kind of things you're also susceptible to just because of how you've been brought up. And so I try to really account for that in my writing. There was a period about 4 years ago, I was obsessed with the lottery of birth and how that really determines how we move through life. And I try to explore that in my writing a lot. How does that feed into how you react to things? How does that feed into how you bend or not bend to societal expectations? And so for me, I treat my characters as real people. I feel them. They literally sometimes they speak to me and it's such a weird thing to say, but speak to other writers. I'm sure they say the same. And my characters speak to me in a way, and I just really feel a deep connection with them, and I feel like I really understand their stories and what they've been through and how they're so different from each other. And I think being able to connect that deeply with my characters really makes it almost impossible for me to blur the lines between them. Yeah.
It's amazing, and I love how you feel your characters, even though you created them. It's like you're
Yes.
living in them, and that's what a book should make you feel. Whenever I read my own, when I read authors' books, I'm like, I always admit when I'm reading a good book too. It's not. I'm very picky about my books, so when I'm reading a
Mhm.
good book, I always put myself in that character. Say, if I were that character, what would
Mm.
I do in that situation? Because it's just like
Exactly.
it's always in my mind. Like it's
Exactly.
reading psychological. So when you are the writer and actually envisioning yourself, like, wow, I'm living in these characters.
In
It's
his character's mind, exactly. That's really how it is for me. When I'm with a character, I what would this character say? What would this character do? Is this out of character for this character, and why? So for me, I feel it very, very deeply. Yeah.
And that's awesome. And I trust me, writing is it's hard for me to write like actual books, but I love writing poems. So when I read my poems, I'm like, wow, I actually created this. So I'm just happy that you feel that type of way with your writing because that's the main part to enjoy your writing, even when you created it. And
Yeah.
so I do want to know, you provide a vivid portrayal of of the Nigerian experience, especially in how young girls and women are shaped by their environments. What are
Mhm.
some of the most significant cultural influences that have shaped your understanding of womanhood?
Oh, I mean, that's a very great question. What are some of the most cultural? I didn't get the other part.
Cultural influences that have shaped, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, some of the most cultural influences. I mean, if you're talking about people, right? When you say cultural influence. I mean, when you say cultural influences, I think that's it. It could be many things. It could be people. It could be experiences. It could be traditions. I think for me, it's multiple things. I think some of the, but let's talk about traditions. I think for me, how I viewed womanhood, I think as a person was really shaped when I was young by the tradition of inheritance. So culturally, where I'm from in Nigeria, so my name is Aiwanose, I'm Isha, I'm from Edo State, and culturally, women can inherit their father's property. So for the longest time, I was told when I was younger that I would never inherit what belongs to my father. And then was a time my cousins used to actually make some comments that I found a bit upsetting. And so for me, that really shaped growing up. It really shaped how I viewed womanhood and how I viewed my experiences in general. I think in terms of people, I've already talked about Buchi Mecheta and her book. Buchi Mecheta is someone I talk about a lot. I love her so much because the joys of motherhood really shaped how I viewed womanhood. Because growing up, I'd always felt there was something wrong with things. I didn't know the word feminism. I'd always felt there was something wrong. But then I was this kid in I think was it GS3 or SS1? I'm trying to remember the year. So GS3 is junior secondary school 3, so that would be the equivalent of that in the US would be grade 9 maybe. It was either grade 9 or grade 10 that I remember, and I was in this grades very young. I was in grade 10, like 13. Because I back home you're allowed to skip classes, so I skip classes really quickly. And so I skipped the like grade 5, I'm grade 6, and so I was one of the youngest in my class. And but anyways, long story short is I remember reading it then, and so to give some context to your listeners, the joys of motherhood is basically the story of this girl who's her mother's only child, and she's the result of an affair between her father, who is a very wealthy man, and this woman that he's obsessed with. And then she grows up in that light, but then she's married off really young to a guy in the city. And then we basically follow her over the next 20, 30 years as she has children, the pressure to have children, the pressure to accept when her husband takes another wife, the pressure to to have a boy, the pressure to bend, the pressure to do this, to do that, just endless societal expectations. And not to spoil it, but we get to the end and it's not what's expected, because I think because the title was the joys of motherhood, so I was so sure the ending was going to be great. And I got to the end and I was like, and I remember saying to myself, I was 13, and I said to myself, I was like, this is not going to be me. I knew then I didn't want to live that kind of life, but that really, I think that was a very defining moment in my life where it became clear to me that I didn't want to live like that, and this, and I realized, and it was like something went off in my head, and they said to me, like, yes, this is actually like, something that always felt wrong, but I think that was the moment it became so clear to me. What else has shaped how I see women's experience? I think it's so many things. I mean, I grew up in Nigeria. I spent most of my life in Nigeria, so there's so many cultural practices or cultural expectations. At a certain age you're supposed to be married, at a certain age you're expected to do this, you're expected to do that. um Let me see. I'm trying to. I mean, I think reading when I was younger, reading Chimamanda Adichie's Purple Hibiscus was also a very defining moment for me as well. I think that was I was really young. My dad bought the book for me when it came out, and for me it was also impressive. But then also it really touched on marital abuse, and and how women are treated in even women that are married to wealthy men. And so I'd say those were the books that really shaped how I viewed womanhood. There's Flora and Wakpa's Ifuru. I keep mixing up the title. You guys have probably never heard these books in your lives, but these are really great books to check out. So these are some of the. So I wasn't anything about what culture or what cultural things affect shaped me. I really tend to think of books and think of experiences and think of cultural practices, um, than anything else. There were certain events in my life as well that made me realize, so seeing family members go through certain things in marriages and everybody just keeping quiet and saying, "Oh, the person is married, you can't do anything for them." I think I think for me, and people prioritizing marriage over people's well-being. I think those were the moments that made me, well, little moments over time that made me stop and think, is this is a problem? This is a problem. Yeah.
That's just it goes so deep. Like just like you said, there's so many like experiences, like a lot of cultural things in our like in Nigerian culture that we could say, well, this is not good, especially. But I do wanted to point out on Purple Hibiscus because I also have the book, right. It's an amazing book as well. And I feel like Americana, Half of the Yellow Sun have also like favorite books too. And so like I just like grew up reading a lot like Things Fall Apart, of course, classic. Everyone at this point has read Things Fall
Just for
Apart.
that part, yeah.
Yes, it was a great book. Don't get me wrong, I cried. I cried in some parts too, but honestly,
I Go ahead.
no, go ahead, Ma.
Now, I wanted to say, like, yeah, like I love things for that part, but I still think I think Arrow of God is the better. I don't know if you read Arrow of God.
I'm reading that right now, and it's actually really good. I love that.
I feel Arrow of God is the better book, but don't quote me. I think
Honestly,
everyone. I love Things Fall Apart. Don't get me wrong, but I think Arrow of God is the better book. I love. I always say that Chimamanda's Americana is probably my favorite book of all time. Like I go back to that book when I have writer's block or I'm just struggling. Like I like Americana is such a great book. Oh, that's so, like
Americana.
I
And
mean,
it's
the first thing is I absolutely detest the characters because I think they're too selfish goods. But I love the book. I love the writing. I love the storytelling. Yeah.
like I started loving the book more towards the middle when she started like just going back to Nigeria and then meeting back her old lover, and I was just like, this is so like
It's so no, it's a really great book.
too good.
Yeah.
I don't know if I dropped the book back, but I think I read it again 2 times because it was just so good. I had to go back to
Yeah.
rekindle my love about it. But I do want to go into the next question. In your portrayal of Nigerian girlhood, you show both the innocence and the struggles that come with growing up. What roles does storytelling play in the reclamation or reshaping of girls' identity in your books?
Reshaping or reclaiming girl identities. So for me, I don't know if you've had the time to go through my book. So my a lot of my books, both my books actually, I say a lot, like I mean, both my books, the story starts out when these women are young, but they're not that young. So they're maybe late teens, early 20s. So they're actually not they're not kids, but then we do get a lot of flashback to see how they grew up and how that defined and that how just to kind of see how their upbringings help to define their present day characters. And I think for me that's very important. But I think storytelling in reshaping and reclaiming girlhood. I think that question is it's a bit vague in the sense that, for me, I'm not trying to really reclaim anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think for me, I'm trying to tell what I've seen, what I've observed. And it's more of maybe as an African woman, putting our own stories out there, because I think, we are bombarded with Western media. We are bombarded. Like I always say, like, when I see people talking about left and right in Nigerian politics, I'm like, are you guys crazy? Like, you're just adopting American lingo. There's nothing like left and right in our politics, but it's just how the world is, because we're bombarded by these things, and it almost tries to define us into a monolith, and so I actually make a very conscious effort not to speak like an American, even though I currently live here, because I'm like, no, I'm not American. I don't want to sound like an American, because I don't want to just become, and for me, I think that shows in my writing. I want to tell stories of how Nigerian girls grow up, what your expectations are. And it's not just all the bad things, the good things, the food, the fun, the funny aspects, the jokes we tell, the things that the things that we find funny, like sharing food with your neighbor, or someone, or your neighbor that's Igbo and you're Yoruba, and you tell your neighbor something funny in Yoruba to go and tell someone else, because the person doesn't understand the meaning, and then they come back and they want to kill you because they found out the true meaning. Things like that. These are things that so just really putting up, like, basically painting a picture of what it's like, and just how those experiences shape us and shape who we are. So the good, the bad, the ugly, and just also the expectations, because sometimes I think when, so as an African in the diaspora, people don't really understand how you think or why you approach things a certain way or how you act a certain way. But the expectations are very different of you, like what your parents are expecting. Like, it's very different. I'm sure even though you've grown up here, I know it's definitely, what your parents' expectations are definitely very different from
So
your friends' parents' expectations, right? And so it shapes how you think, how you approach things. And so for me, I really just want to tell African stories, and I want to tell stories in in a way that just puts us on the map and puts us out there. Yeah.
that's just really powerful because, like you said, you're not reclaiming anything. You're just giving a vivid, like, imagery of what it looked like to be a girl or just a woman in the time. And just now, even all the
Mm-hmm.
experiences from way back until 1800,
Mm-hmm.
it's still here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like
Mm-hmm.
you said, African diaspora, like, even though, I mean, I was born in Nigeria, but I came here to when I was 3 years old. So, like, I'm
Oh,
Americanized now. My accent is gone. Everything, like, when people ask me, "Are you a Nigerian?" The only thing that gives it away is my last name. Like, Joda is
yeah.
so like American name, and so I wish I had that Nigerian accent. Even though I try to fake it, it sounds rubbish.
At least you said the word rubbish. Americans don't say the word rubbish, so it shows that at least you still have the Nigerian influence. Americans don't say the word rubbish. Every time I say rubbish, they look at me weird, and then one day I realized that yes, Americans don't say rubbish. They say trash.
They say trash, and even say like they don't say like you vex me. They don't say anything
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, like, oh, don't
that.
vex, so things like, yeah, they don't
Like,
have our slangs and
what?
our lingo.
Don't leave
I
us.
I miss that. That's one thing I definitely miss about living back home. I miss, and just the fun. Nigerians are so funny. Oh my gosh, Nigerians
Funny.
are hilarious.
But like honestly, just it's just beautiful how you do that with your writing. And I do want to
Mhm.
understand, how do you believe literature can be a tool for changing perceptions about gender, especially in traditional societies like Nigeria?
I mean, literature has always been a powerful tool in putting up a mirror to society. I think for me that's very important. That's always been, people read my books, and I get messages, and like, people tell me things like, oh my god. And now it's kind of calmed down. I guess when I release the next book I'll start getting more, but generally what happens is people message me and they tell me things like, that was awful, like, this thing that happened to this girl in the book was awful. Why didn't you punish this character enough, things like that. But I always say that regardless of the messages I get, for me, I want people to feel something. And if you're messaging me, you're angry, you're upset, it means you feel something, you know? And so that's the entire point of literature. I think literature is such a very powerful tool, because you write a story and you literally put up a mirror to society and you tell society, this is how it is. And then you let people decide for themselves, is this good or bad? Let people decide for themselves, are they comfortable with it? Because it's one thing to see it around you, but a lot of people, when they see it in literature, they realize, oh my gosh, yes, there's somebody I know like this. And then it dawns on them that, oh, this is bad, or, oh, we shouldn't be doing this. Oh, wait, there is a problem with this, like, so kind of like how I felt when I read The Joys of Motherhood, and it clicked, like, this is awful, but this is it. And so for me, I think it's such a powerful tool in just storytelling in general, is just such a powerful tool in painting a picture of what is, and in letting people, through storytelling, identify for themselves, there's a problem here, because they feel, and they connect with these characters, and they connect with these stories, and then they realize. And then the thing is, literature makes you more alert to the world around you, because you've seen this, and then you now watch out for it in real life. Like, wait, this writer wrote about this. Is this happening around me? Is this something I should be paying attention to? Where is this happening? And then my experience has been that it makes people more proactive in addressing these issues. It makes people say, there's a problem, let's do something about it, let's attack this, let's do this, right? I think that's very important. I think when writers, I think first of all, I think there's a space for all types of fiction, but for me, the space I really want to, I've chosen to occupy really is really the space that really just puts up a mirror to society and asks society, is this right? Is this good? Like what's happening here? How can we fix it? You know, and I think that's really all it is.
That's amazing. Like, just it's kind of like a wake up call. Like, people would pass by certain situation, think like, oh, okay, it's bad. But when they read it in text and actually see the details and everything, they're like, oh
Hmm.
wait, this is bad. Like, this is not
Yeah, this is a problem.
this is a
Exactly.
problem and we need to fix it. So it's like you just said, like, the joys of motherhood. When you read the book and you're like, oh wait, I didn't like this. This is bad. It was like a alert to you, like, okay, this is something that I don't want to repeat for my
Yes.
life. And so the fact that you are writing to, it's kind of like protecting people from these bad situations. So maybe one day someone reads your book and they might get into something and they're like, oh wait, I read something about this, I don't want this, and so they'll run
Yes.
away, like, so like it's just amazing how you do that. And like also, well, like writing is just a very powerful tool, and the fact that many books and just many ideas are being banned every single year, it's just irks my soul. Like, you don't like why would you ban any text? Are they killing you? Is it doing something to you?
But
Like,
then it shows just how powerful literature is, right? I think because when you start banning it, because you don't want people to read, you don't want to expose people's minds to these things. You don't want people to wake up. So, for example, when you're banning books about like slavery, it's because you don't want people to read about how bad slavery was.
it,
People that tend to dismiss slavery tend to dismiss all the atrocities that were committed. When they read, their eyes are open and they say, "Wow, this was awful." You
honestly,
know, I don't want people to have that wake up call, that awakening, that mental and emotional awakening that this is wrong and we need to fix it.
right,
And I think that's really the entire point. Because the thing about stories is that they help to humanize characters. So it's one thing to be like, oh yeah, that person is in this place, but then to see this person as a human with feelings, with thoughts, with emotions, and then you connect. And once you connect emotionally to a character on page, you're not just they become real, and then you're able to identify with their problems. And I think that's the issue. That's what they don't want people to do. They don't want people to really connect with the humanity of others, because when you're banning books about certain things, about certain kind of people, it's because you don't want readers to connect with those people's humanity.
right. And that's like slavery, like you said, is the sugar-coated, whitewashed version of slavery. If you knew
Hmm.
how bad slavery was, you
Exactly.
you will cry all the rest of your life.
It's awful. Growing up, movies these days don't even touch
They
it. I
do
feel like,
justice for that, Nelson.
yeah.
Is the crimes of just this country is sickening.
And not just slavery, like what happened. I think one book I really like, it's Homegoing by Yasi, because it covers not just slavery, but then the time afterwards. Because people just say, oh, slavery, but then there was Jim Crow era. There were so many things that happened after slavery that people
Yes,
brush aside. So it wasn't just slavery; it was what happened after slavery
yes.
as well. So yeah.
Yeah, slavery was just, it's sickening to me that even they're trying to take away African American literature and just
Mm-hmm.
key African American history. I did a whole topic on that on a school project. It's sad. But like a lot of these people who are in the seats are just people who don't understand that this is people's history that you're taking
Mm-hmm.
away. And if you take away this history, you're just making your country look all pretty, but at the end of the day, it's still gonna be there. The history.
It isn't about storytelling, and why it's so powerful is you can only suppress it for so long. It can't be suppressed. I think it's I find all this I find all these efforts with a waste of time. Yeah, you can't suppress, you can only suppress the truth for so long.
Exactly. I do want to understand, and just tying this whole interview, finally, what does it mean to you? Or like, what does it mean for you to become a woman?
That's a very good question, actually. I think so. When I titled the book "Tomorrow I Become a Woman," I was very frustrated with how the goalposts kept just generally in society, the goalposts just in my mind, it just kept moving. When I was growing up, I was like, oh, when you first get your period, you're a woman. When you do this, you're a woman. When you do that, you're a woman. And so for me, womanhood is getting to a point where I'm confident and satisfied. Not doesn't mean I of course don't want to progress or grow, but I'm very aware of who I am, and I'm very okay with who I am. I'm not trying to impress people. I'm not trying to impress society. I'm not trying to aspire for something because society wants me to aspire for it. Whatever I'm aspiring for is because I really want it. I think that's really the true point of of womanhood for me, at least. Getting to a point where my womanhood isn't defined by what society defines it as, but what I define it as, and what I want, and what I want my life to look like. It's because oh, when you have a child, when you have a male child, when you marry, oh, you've not married, are you a really woman? You're still a small. I don't care about all those things. So getting to a point where all those outside things, they don't define me, they don't define who I am, they don't define how I see myself. I'm not pressured to fit into a box. For me, that's really the point where I can say yes. I'm a woman, and I think that's what I want for everyone. That's what I want for all my readers, and that's why I write the way I write, because I want people to be like, do you know what? I'm not going to define myself by these parameters and by this goalposts and this point that set. Oh, when you do this, when you do this, no, I'm going to want something because I want it. If I want to get married, then I'll marry because I want to get married, not because society has told me to get married. If I want to have kids, I'll have a kid because I want to, not because society has told me to. And at my own time, at my own pace, when I'm ready, when. So for me, that is the true point of being a woman. That's where you say, you know what, enough, and you just shut it all out, and you're okay and satisfied in with who you are. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Just accepting that your reality, that your path is not judged by others, and that you as an individual, you as a woman, have every right and every privilege to go for what you want, and that no one can tell you no or yes or no
Yes.
or when time this, that. It's
Yes.
you that makes that decision. And so it's beautiful that it's accepting that you are human and that you have the capability of reaching and aspiring for great things for your life and going for it really and taking the action. And I do
Yes.
want to go into the last question. And it's a really funny question. It'll be really quick, but I do want to know, what is your favorite bowl of noodles?
Bowl of noodles.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, I don't. I So I eat all sorts, right? Because I love Asian food. So I eat, like, I don't know if I have a favorite, to be honest. Ooh, I don't know. I don't, to be honest, like
One, one.
give me, it's like give me options. Yeah, give me options.
I don't know. Like over here, noodles is associated with too many things. But if I had to say it, like if I was being specific, maybe like tteokbokki, you have rice cake noodles, you have like ramen.
I don't really like tteokbokki because it's a little sweet. Like
It is.
I'm not someone that really likes, like, it's too sweet. Like the spiciness I love, but it's not. It's a little too sweet. I love. Oh my gosh, this is so hard. I really have a couple of minutes left. I do you know what? I'm just going to be a proper Nigerian and say at the end of the day, my favorite is still Indomie, Nigerian Indomie.
That's the
At
answer.
the end of the day, because to be honest, like, I love all those other things. I love pho. I love, like, you get what I mean. But by the end of the day, when I'm sick or I'm recovering, I want a plate of hot, spicy Nigerian Indomie. So
To put the egg, the you have to put the akun, you have to put the tomato, you have to put
yeah,
the
I don't really like tomatoes, but the egg, the pepper, the crayfish,
fish, you have
yeah.
to put the azu, you have to put everything in there
Ah,
to
yes, the asu, yes. Or sometimes the suya.
so
I
yeah,
just
there you go. That meat. But thank you so much. This was amazing. Your words are very wise, and just thank you so much for spreading your wisdom to this podcast. It's just an honor having you here. And just please, Ma, keep making an impact. And just thank you again.
yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been great. I really so I thank you for having me on, and well done. I'm really impressed with what you're doing at such a young age. Just keep going, and again, like I said, don't let anyone tell you you can't do anything. You can. Yeah.
Yes, Thank you so much. Have a wonderful
Thank
day.
you.